Have you ever wondered why you've never quite fit in? Why, even in a crowded room, you feel like you're walking a path no one else can see? Why, since childhood, a voice deep within whispered that you were different, set apart, marked by something greater than yourself. Not everyone is born with a divine mission, but some are chosen before they even take their first breath. And if you're listening to this right now, chances are your soul has always known. You were never here by accident. From the beginning, while others lived unaware, you carried a presence within you, an invisible fire lit by God Himself. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't coincidence. This was purpose, anchored in heaven and planted in your spirit before you were even formed in your mother's womb. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." And maybe that's exactly what you felt your entire life. Set apart, chosen, but burdened by it. Maybe prayer has always been more than ritual to you. Maybe you felt it, the unmistakable weight of a calling you can't yet define. Maybe you've wrestled with questions that others find strange. While some prayed to be seen, you prayed to understand. You prayed to find your purpose. You prayed because, even as a child, you felt like God was speaking to you in ways others couldn't hear. There were moments of silence that felt sacred, dreams that felt prophetic, a longing to know who you truly are and why you were placed in this specific generation, in this specific family, with this specific story. Nothing about your life feels random, and that's because it isn't. This isn't just a story about being different. This is a spiritual awakening, a divine revelation of who you've always been. And though the world may have tried to silence that truth, it's still there. It's alive. It's burning inside your spirit like a flame that refuses to die. You see, being chosen is not a fairy tale. It's a weight, a responsibility, a deep spiritual awareness that forces you to see beyond the surface of this world. And once your eyes have been opened, they can never unsee what God has shown you. Even now, as you hear these words, something inside you is stirring. A recognition, a remembering, not with your mind, but with your soul. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped believing you were special. You started questioning your worth. The world told you to conform, but your spirit resisted. What if I told you that everything you've endured, the isolation, the confusion, the spiritual restlessness, was never punishment, but preparation? What if every unanswered prayer, every silent night, every moment of loneliness was God shaping you, refining you for what's coming next? This message isn't for everyone. It's for the ones who were born sensitive, observant, spiritually alert, the ones who cried alone in their rooms, not knowing that heaven was closer than they realized. It's for the ones who didn't just grow, they awakened. Because before the world saw you, God called you. Before the world could label you, heaven had already named you. You are chosen, and the signs have been there since the very beginning. You see, when you were born, there wasn't just a cry. There was a shift. Something in the spiritual realm recognized your arrival. And while others saw just another baby, heaven saw a warrior being placed exactly where light was needed most. Your birth carried weight, not because of your family's name, not because of your environment, but because of what was placed inside you. From your earliest days, you carried questions deeper than your age could explain. You noticed things, felt things. You were often misunderstood, called too quiet, too intense, too emotional. But it was never too much. It was always divine sensitivity, the kind of awareness only the chosen ones carry. And if right now your heart feels heavy, if your eyes are beginning to fill with tears, don't be ashamed. That's not weakness. That's your spirit responding to truth. Let me tell you something. God never stopped seeing you, even when you felt abandoned, even when you fell, even when you stopped praying. He never stopped watching over your life, because those who are chosen are never left behind. They're pursued, even in silence. And that silence you've carried, it's been holy ground all along. So right here, right now, I want to ask something from you, not for me, for you. Go to the comments and write your prayer. Doesn't matter how long or short it is. Doesn't matter how broken it feels. Just let it out. Say what's been sitting heavy in your chest. I believe. No, I know. that when two or more gather in faith, even online, heaven moves. And as you write, I will pray with you. Others watching will pray with you. This isn't just a video. This is sacred space. There is something powerful about putting it into words, because when you speak it, write it, declare it, you're not just praying. You're activating the atmosphere around you. And if this message is resonating with your soul, if it's reminding you of who you truly are, don't just watch and walk away. Click the like button, not for the algorithm, but to declare, I receive this word. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not out of habit, but because this place will be a sanctuary for your spirit. Every video is more than content. It's a lifeline, a divine reminder of the truth this world tries to make you forget. You're not alone. You were never meant to be. The journey continues. There are things you don't remember, not with your mind, but your spirit has never forgotten. Before you had words, before you could understand what pain or joy meant, your soul already carried knowledge, sacred, silent, but undeniable. While others were simply born into families and environments, you were born into purpose. The world may have seen just another birth, but in the realm of the spirit, your arrival was like thunder rolling across eternity. Heaven knew your name before it was ever spoken by human lips, because you were chosen before you even knew what it meant to be alive. Maybe you've looked at your past and asked, why me? Why the rejection? Why the early trauma? Why the pain so young? But here's what most people never tell you. The lives of the chosen are rarely easy. They begin different, shaped by fire, carved by silence. That's because God doesn't build strength on comfort. He builds it on intention. And your life, every part of it, has been intentional. That loneliness you felt in the crib, that wasn't neglect. That was separation. That moment when you looked around and felt like you didn't belong, even in your own family, that wasn't rejection. That was God setting you apart. Chosen ones are not born into ease. They are born into alignment. Because from the moment you took your first breath, something ancient awakened inside of you. A code, divine and eternal, began pulsing through your being. It didn't matter if you weren't planned by your parents. You were planned by heaven. Your heartbeat was the sound of prophecy in motion. There were signs all along. You were drawn to quiet places. Even as a child, you felt more than you could explain. Maybe you cried for reasons no one else understood. Maybe you asked questions that adults couldn't answer. You weren't weird. You weren't broken. You were marked. Marked to carry a light into places where others only see darkness. Marked to speak truth, even when the world rewards silence. Marked to heal, to see, to feel, to know, without ever being taught how. Have you ever wondered why certain things affect you so deeply? Why the suffering of others moves you more than it should? It's not weakness. It's divine empathy. It's the evidence that your soul was assigned to more. Some of you were born into chaos, into violence, into poverty, into emotional wilderness, and still, you survived. Do you know what that means? You were sustained by something stronger than circumstance. You were covered, watched over, protected not from everything, but through everything. Because the chosen ones don't escape the fire, they are forged in it. Even the things you thought broke you, they didn't. They refined you. And while the world was trying to label you, too quiet, too sensitive, too rebellious, heaven was whispering, exactly as planned. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. Not for your ego, but for your mission. And that mission? It's waking up again inside of you. That's why you're still here. That's why you're watching this. That's why your spirit is stirring even as you hear these words. Because your soul recognizes what your mind is just beginning to remember. You were chosen long before you could understand it. Long before you had language to describe it. You carried something holy, and still do. So if you've ever felt like you didn't belong, like you were walking through life with an invisible weight no one else seemed to carry, this is why. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to break patterns, to shift atmospheres, and to reflect heaven's voice in a world that's forgotten how to listen. And now you're starting to remember. Not with your thoughts, but with your spirit. If you've ever felt different, even as a child, if these words are waking something ancient inside of you, I want you to go to the comments now. Write, I was marked from birth, and I remember. Let me know where you're watching from, so I can pray for your life and your calling. This is just the beginning. There were nights when you cried silenciosamente, clutching your pillow, afraid of something you couldn't explain. Not monsters under the bed, but something deeper. A weight, a silence, a presence. And yet, even in that darkness, there was always a strange peace that would settle over you, almost like an unseen blanket being laid over your spirit. You didn't know what it was at the time, but now, you're starting to remember. The truth is, you were never really alone. There was always someone there, not in physical form, not someone your eyes could see or your hands could touch, but a presence, divine, constant, patient. Some call it God, others call it destiny, but what matters most is that it was real. It was Him, watching, guarding, guiding. As a child, you might have experienced strange moments, walking away from an accident without a scratch, feeling the urge to turn back just before something bad happened, hearing something whisper softly to your heart like, "Don't go there," or "Wait just a little longer." And maybe, deep down, you always knew something was protecting you. But because no one else talked about it, you learned to doubt it. You were told it was imagination, coincidence, a fluke. But now, with each passing day, the truth is getting harder to deny. You were being kept for something greater. Think about those moments, the ones you can't explain, the almosts that never happened, the chaos you somehow made it through, the times you felt like something lifted you out of the fire, even when no one around you noticed the flames. That was Him. That was the invisible hand of God, placing you exactly where you needed to be, not for survival's sake, but for preparation. Because chosen ones don't just have a mission, they require protection. And from the very beginning, you were surrounded by divine strategy. Maybe your childhood wasn't filled with affection. Maybe you were the quiet one, the misfit. Maybe you went through abandonment, abuse, rejection. And you asked, why didn't God stop it? But what you don't realize is, He was there, not stopping the pain, but repurposing it, shielding you from things you never even saw, guiding you through battles you didn't even know you were fighting. There were times your heart should have broken beyond repair, times your mind should have given up, times when the enemy tried to claim you early, through trauma, fear, temptation. But you're still here, still breathing, still seeking. And that is not by accident. Even your dreams, those strange, vivid dreams that came when you were a child, weren't random. They were messages, warnings, insights, clues, proof that your soul was already in conversation with the divine long before you understood the language of the Spirit. That time you felt an invisible hand pulling you back from danger. That wasn't just instinct. That was spiritual intervention. That strange peace in the middle of family chaos, that wasn't your own strength. That was divine covering. You didn't imagine it. You were protected, and still are. Every close call that didn't happen, every danger you were spared from, every season you thought would destroy you, but didn't. That was your proof. Heaven had assigned guardians to your soul, and you may not have seen them, but they saw you, always. There's a reason you feel things more deeply than most. A reason why, even as a child, you could walk into a room and feel the energy shift. It's because you weren't just a child. You were a vessel, a carrier of spiritual light, a chosen one, marked and monitored by the unseen realm. And yes, sometimes you still question it. If I was really chosen, why did I suffer? If God was with me, why did I feel so alone? But pain doesn't always mean abandonment. Sometimes pain is permission. Permission for growth, for resilience, for divine alignment. You were never abandoned. You were being trained. And what looked like silence was, in fact, sacred strategy. The truth is, the more valuable your purpose, the more fierce the protection. And yours was fierce, is fierce, because what's in you is dangerous, to darkness, to generational curses, to spiritual complacency. You were set apart, guarded, watched over, even when you wandered, even when you rebelled, even when you forgot who you were. You are here because you were held by invisible arms, and those arms never let go. While other children played in groups, carefree and laughing at things that never made sense to you, you observed. You watched their joy, but not comme inveja, with curiosity. Because while they found meaning in the surface, you were always pulled to something deeper. You didn't want to just play. You wanted to understand. While others asked what, you were the child who asked why. Why am I here? Why do I feel so much? Why does no one else seem to notice the weight in the air? And maybe you couldn't put it into words back then, but that tension inside you, that internal echo that never quieted, that wasn't confusion. It was spiritual awareness. You weren't lost. You were awakening. It wasn't just sensitivity. It was discernment. From a young age, you saw through people. You knew when someone's smile wasn't real. You sensed the shift in a room's energy before anyone said a word. You carried the weight of emotions that weren't yours, and it left you tired, drained, misunderstood. Adults said you were too dramatic. Kids said you were weird. But now you see the truth. You weren't meant to be like them. You were being set apart. And oh, the loneliness. You sat alone not because you wanted to, but because something inside you never fully fit. Even in crowds, you felt like a stranger. Even in family, you felt like a visitor. At school, you tried to laugh when they laughed, tried to speak like they spoke. You even mimicked their dreams, but it always felt like putting on someone else's skin. Uncomfortable, fake, wrong. That disconnection wasn't failure. It was confirmation. You were never made for common ground. Your spirit was encoded for sacred paths. The ache you felt in your chest when the world didn't understand you, that wasn't sadness. That was the pull of purpose. It was heaven reminding you. You are not supposed to blend in, and so you wrestled with identity, with belonging. You looked for your reflection in others, only to come up empty. You saw friends chasing success, image, popularity, and you tried. But every attempt at fitting in only made you feel more empty, like your soul was shouting, "This is not where I belong." The truth? That discomfort was divine. That conflict was calling. It was God's way of refusing to let you settle. He didn't allow your soul to find comfort in the shallow because your mission lives in the deep. And the deep is lonely. At first, you weren't lacking something. You were carrying something. A spiritual code. A frequency the world couldn't detect. You were walking through the natural with a blueprint from the supernatural. And that tension between who you were and where you were, that's what shaped your spiritual identity. Remember those moments when you tried to just be normal and still felt a hole inside. That was heaven saying, there's more. The sense of being too much, too emotional, too intense, too thoughtful, was a lie the world told you because it couldn't contain the weight of your soul. But God could, and He planted that weight in you because you were chosen to carry something heavy. Chosen ones don't get the luxury of blending in. And that invisible discomfort you carried since childhood wasn't a flaw. It was divine separation. You weren't being excluded. You were being preserved. Every time you wondered, why can't I be like them? The answer was always, because I didn't create you to be like them. You were made to see deeper, to feel wider, to rise higher. And that kind of calling always starts with conflict. Now tell me, have you ever felt like you couldn't explain who you were? Like something in you was too deep for this world? Like you were living in the right body, but on the wrong planet? I want you to tell me your story in the comments. Let this be the space where you're finally understood. Drop the word "set apart" below if this part spoke to you. Or tell me, where in your life have you felt this divine discomfort? I want to read everything, because you're not alone. Not anymore. As you grew older, things didn't become simpler. They became heavier. While others were focused on the external world, you were being pulled inward. The noise around you got louder, but so did the voice within. That whisper you always ignored started to roar. Something inside you wouldn't stay silent anymore. It was the beginning of your spiritual awakening. It didn't happen all at once. For some, it started with restlessness. For others, with heartbreak. Maybe you lost someone. Maybe you felt like everything was falling apart. What you didn't know then, but are starting to see now, is that none of it was random. Those moments were divine interventions, perfectly placed to wake you up from the illusion of a life that wasn't yours. You began to question everything. Why am I here? Why do I feel like there's something I'm supposed to do, but I can't name it? Why does the pain feel purposeful, like it's pointing me somewhere? These weren't ordinary doubts. They were spiritual prompts. They were heaven knocking on the door of your consciousness saying, it's time. And even though you didn't understand it at first, your soul did. You felt it. You still do. That fire burning in your chest, that longing for more, that's not coincidence. That's your original design, reactivating. Everything you went through, every rejection, every silent cry, every night when you felt invisible, was never about punishment. It was preparation. God was shaping you in silence, breaking what needed to be broken, stripping away what couldn't go with you into your purpose. And when you thought you were being buried, you were actually being planted. Because awakening doesn't start in joy, it starts in desperation. In the moment you realize the life you're living doesn't match the truth that's screaming from your soul. And so, you began to remember. You remembered how you always felt things before they happened. How you could walk into a room and feel what others were hiding. You remembered the dreams, the symbols, the signs, the strange peace in chaos, the voice that guided you when no one else was around. Your childhood wasn't just a random collection of memories. It was a divine blueprint. The loneliness, the questions, the wonder, the moments when you thought you were weird, those were sacred clues. You weren't weird. You were being whispered to by heaven. Every detour, every no, every closed door, it was divine navigation. And now you're beginning to see the bigger picture. Your past wasn't wasted. The battles didn't break you. They built you. That identity you tried to hide. It's your anointing. That voice you kept quiet. It's your calling. And that strange way you've always seen the world, that's your gift. You weren't late. You were in training. Because spiritual awakenings don't come to those who have everything figured out. They come to the broken, the questioning, the exhausted, the ones who've tried to do it all on their own, only to find the world could never give them what their soul was crying for. And right now, you're awakening, not because you earned it, but because you were always meant to. You're beginning to walk differently, to speak with more intention, to say no without guilt and yes without fear. You feel the weight of something sacred in your chest. You sense that your presence matters more than you ever realized. And people are starting to notice. They can't explain why they're drawn to you, but they are. Because you carry a light that doesn't come from this world. It comes from the God who chose you. You're not just remembering who you are. You're becoming who you were created to be. And this moment right now is another piece of your awakening. You were meant to hear this. Not a second earlier, not a second later. Keep listening. The next part of your story is already unfolding. You always felt it, didn't you? That ache, that weight, that invisible pull in your chest, calling you to something greater, even when you didn't have the words for it, even when you tried to deny it, even when the world tried to bury it under expectations, distractions, and noise. The truth is, you were never meant to be like everyone else. You were never supposed to fit into a mold you didn't choose. That tension inside of you wasn't confusion. It was direction. It was divine. It was the very hand of God setting you apart from the start. And now, here you are, awakened, aware, still unsure maybe, but undeniably stirred. Your soul remembers what your mind forgot. You were chosen, not because you were perfect, not because you knew how to handle the weight of this calling, but because your soul came into this world already coded with purpose, already carrying the fire of something holy, sacred, eternal. Yes, the path of the chosen is lonely. It is misunderstood. You will be called too intense, too emotional, too spiritual, too different. But let me tell you, you were meant to be too much for a world that's been living in too little. And that pressure you feel, that's the weight of your light trying to break through the cracks of your old self. That's the divine plan pushing you out of comfort and into calling. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You are here for more. Not more success in the eyes of man, but more impact in the hands of God. Your story, everything you've survived, it's not just a memory, it's a message. And someone right now is crying out for the healing that lives inside your journey. They need your voice, your scars, your truth. You were not chosen to hide. You were chosen to illuminate. But hear me, you are not alone. There are others like you, quiet warriors, hidden prophets, souls who feel like outcasts, but were actually born to be outliers. Chosen ones who spent their childhood trying to be normal, only to realize their difference was their divine weapon all along. And yes, it gets hard. The road isn't paved with certainty. The nights are long. The silence can scream. But even in your isolation, heaven is closer than your breath. God is not watching from a distance. He's walking with you. whispering in every step. Keep going. I'm not done with you yet. You're not late. You're not lost. You're launching. The darkness you faced wasn't a detour. It was a doorway. Every battle prepared you. Every loss refined you. And now, more than ever, the world needs you to step into what you were born to do. The voice inside of you, the one that kept you awake at night, it was never fear. It was remembrance of your mission, of your truth, of your origin. Because being chosen doesn't start the moment you realize it. It starts in your first breath, and it follows you until your last. So rise. Rise with the fire of every childhood memory you buried. Rise with the weight of every question you were too afraid to ask. Rise with the echo of every divine encounter that never left your bones. Rise, because someone is waiting for your light to show them the way out of their own darkness. You are not broken. You are becoming. And just when you think you've reached the edge of your strength, you'll realize something miraculous. The journey is just beginning. There's more clarity, more healing, more divine instruction. And as you continue to walk in obedience, even trembling, even unsure, the heavens respond. The doors open, the signs increase, the miracles accelerate. Because when a chosen one wakes up, all of creation leans in. So if you've been wondering why your life has been different from the start, this is your answer. You are not cursed. You are called. You are not abandoned. You are anointed. You are not lost. You are being led. And your story, your real story, is only now beginning to unfold. A sacred book written long before you were born. A divine script only you can live out. And as you turn the page, something shifts. So let me ask you this. What signs did you experience as a child that you now realize were divine? Share your story in the comments below. I want to read it, not just because I care, but because someone else will see your words and feel less alone. Let's build this community of the chosen together. Comment, "I was marked since birth," if this message spoke to your spirit. And stay close, because in the next video, we're going to uncover the truth behind a deep and often misunderstood part of your journey. Why so many chosen ones walk away from the church, and why that too is part of the plan. You don't want to miss what's coming. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. If something deep inside you stirred while you watched this, if you felt that whisper, that undeniable voice of God calling your name through every word spoken, then this isn't just a video. It's your confirmation. I want to invite you now. Don't walk this path alone. If you felt the presence of God in this message, subscribe to this channel right now. This space was created for chosen souls like you, for voices that were silenced, for hearts that are finally waking up. If you made it all the way here, I see you. I honor you. Comment below. I heard the voice. Let me know you were here. Let others know they're not alone. And before you go, don't forget to leave a like. Not for numbers, but because it tells the algorithm that this message needs to reach more chosen ones out there, the ones still searching for a sign. And now, watch the next video that's appearing on your screen. In it, we go even deeper. We're going to talk about why so many chosen ones are leaving the church, and why that too may be part of the divine plan. Click it now. Your journey is only beginning, and I'm walking with you.